All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Tony Rocco, Structural Program Chief with the division, and I'm facilitating today's meeting. So with that, I call the Residential and Manufacturers Structures Board meeting of January 10th, 2024 to order at exactly 9:30 a.m. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Gordon Onslow,
I'm here.
James Austin,
I am here.
Forrest Barnes, I will skip for now, Sean Blaire,
I'm here.
John Camiller,
Present.
Rich Fry,
Present.
Emily Kemper. Here. Douglas Lethin,
Here.
Rich Tovar,
I'm here.
and Matthew Lutter.
Present.
Thank you. These were all virtual members of the board, and we do have quorum.
Great, thanks, Katie. Okay, moving up to the board agenda. Do any board members have any changes to the agenda or the order of business for today? Seeing none, I rule the agenda and order of business approved. Moving on to the draft minutes, do any board members have any changes to the draft meeting minutes from the October 4th meeting? Again, seeing none, I rule the draft minutes of October 4th, 2023 as final. The date of the next regularly scheduled meeting is April 3rd, 2024, coming up in a couple of months. And that brings us to, excuse me, the board's vote for chair and vice chair. Ian, could you please explain the process along with board option to possibly table this item again?
Thank you, Facilitator Rocco. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. We may now begin the process of electing a new chair and vice chair. However, the board may choose to table these votes until the next board meeting. How would the board like to proceed? If we would like to proceed with a vote, then we would accept nominations for chair, have a vote on that, and then have nominations for a vice chair, and then vote on that. But again, we do have the option to table this vote for another meeting. Thank you.
Through the chair, Rich Fry. Do we have all of our members signed up again? I know that there was some trouble getting people that were on the site.
Rich, I missed the last part of that. I think maybe your phone connection kind of tailed off there, but
Okay.
But I believe we do have a vacancy for the structural engineer position. I don't know if that's what you were asking.
Everybody gets on and has had a chance to get all the paperwork in. So,
Rich, I'm sorry, we're not able to make up your audio here. I don't know if you can move to a different spot or something. We're hearing you, but it's very faint and it's kind of going in and out. In the meantime, any other thoughts from the board on this agenda item?
I think we need to wait for Rich to get back on the phone to hear what he had to say.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Loud and clear, Rich. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I was just asking if everybody that was previously on the board that was trying to reapply is on, and if these are all the names that are available for selection for the chair and the vice chair.
Like I said, Rich, there is a vacancy for the structural engineer position. That's the only vacancy that I'm aware of currently.
And has anyone applied for the chair or vice chair?
No, this agenda item was tabled, as you recall, at the last, I think maybe the last two meetings, and now we're just bringing it up again.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
May I nominate Rich Fry for chair?
Rich Fry, do you accept this nomination?
You know, I'm traveling quite a bit these days, so I would rather not. If we don't have anyone else, I would, but if there's anyone else that's interested, they can speak up. How about we table this to the next meeting and do it again?
Okay, it sounds like the pleasure of the board is to table this item again to the next meeting in April. Okay. All right, moving on. We are going to have a quick farewell here to Rebai Tamerhoulet, who served on the board for a long time. I have a quick script here to read for Rebai. I was hoping he was going to be here live, but I'm not seeing him. So Rebai's first four-year term on the Residential Manufactured Structures Board representing building officials began July 2nd of 2013. The board welcomed Rebai at his first official meeting October 2nd, 2013, replacing at the time Chair Scott Caulfield. That was going back a while. Rebai did not miss any meetings during his first 4 years as a member of the board, and he was reappointed to his position July 1, 2017. At the January 9, 2019 meeting, Chair Jan Lewis nominated Rebai for the duties of vice chair. Because no other nominations were received, Rebai accepted the position, was voted unanimously for vice chair of the RMSB. He continued to serve as vice chair in addition to serving as acting chair when the board formally said farewell to Chair Jan Lewis at its October 2nd, 2019 meeting. Although his second four-year term on the board officially ended June 30th, 2021, he continued to serve in his role as vice chair and acting chair at every meeting until replaced October 4th, 2023. On behalf of the board, the division staff, and many individuals in the community, as well as all over the state, we wish to express our resounding appreciation to Rebai for his long-term dedication and commitment, and for his significant contributions and lasting support to the board. Rebai has always carefully deliberated on matters before the board, even when the decisions were difficult. In addition to his service on the board, Rebai has consulted with staff on a number of code issues and discussed a variety of solvable issues. Rebai has had an active role in the adoption processes and was instrumental in bringing in several clarifying amendments to our code. As his time on the board comes to a close, we look forward to his next big challenges, and we hope that he'll always continue to be a resource for knowledge and critical feedback, as he always has done. A famous peace activist once said, "Wisdom is knowing what to do next, virtue is doing it." Rebai is both wise and virtuous, and we are grateful that he has shared those qualities with us as a board member. And we do have some very special things here for Rebai when he comes here. We have a signed letter from our administrator in a very nice folder. We also have a plaque here from the governor. So farewell to Rebai. Moving on, with a farewell, we have a welcome. So we have a new member in that building official position, and the new member is Sean Blaire. Sean was confirmed September 29th, 2023 to the Residential Manufactured Structures Board in the position of building official to an unexpired term. His term began October 5th, 2023, and will continue to serve until June 30th, 2027. I've known Sean for a number of years, and he is a fantastic building official, a great person to discuss code with. And Mr. Blaire, I'd like to turn it over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself to the board here?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. So, like I said, name's Sean Blaire, currently the building official for the city of Gresham. Been here 20 years, sort of worked my way up to this position. Before Gresham, worked at a structural engineering firm and everything, and just here to help out the board as much as I can. Listening to Tony read all about Rebai, I got some big shoes to fill, I guess. And then even before Rebai, it was Scott Caulfield. So I've known both those guys for years and everything. So I'm just here to help and, whatever I can do for the board. Don't want to be chair at this point. So at least like to get my feet wet a little bit before stepping into a position like that. So thanks, everyone. And that's all I got.
That's great. Thanks so much, Sean. All right, that takes us to agenda item 2, public comment. Ian, do we have any folks signed up for general public comment today?
Thank you, Facilitator Rocco. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. We did not receive any requests for general public comment. However, I would like to take a moment just in case there's anyone in the room or on the Zoom that would like to provide general public comment to the board. Hearing none, Facilitator Rocco, that concludes general public comment. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks, Ian. That moves us to agenda item 3 and reports, and I'm going to turn it over to myself here for a structural program update. Again, for the record, Tony Rocco with the division. Just a quick update for the board about the structural program. The 2023 Oregon Residential Specialty Code update training videos have been posted on our division website, which we're real excited about. The training videos have been split into 3 separate modules. So you'll see a module on structural and fire life safety matters, a module on energy and Chapter 11 matters, and then a module on mechanical and fuel gas. Really proud of the team and the efforts they put forth, on these videos, and we really hope that you all enjoy them. The great thing is they're available for free, so while they're intentionally catered to our local government partners and certified individuals, they're also a resource out there for anybody in the design community or just homeowners to reference and access at their pleasure. So. In addition to those training videos, we have a great summary document that outlines all Oregon amendments to the base model IRC. This document has been available for a couple of months. I mentioned it at the last board meeting. It is downloadable and printable. It's approximately 240 pages. And when paired with the 2021 IRC, it essentially creates the 23 ORSC. So it's basically like almost the old, yellow insert pages that we all know from years ago. It essentially is that. And it's a great document. Again, big thanks to Laura Burns for her work on putting together that document. So check that one out if you haven't already. And then finally, our 23 ORSC is available for online ordering through ICC's online store. They estimate that orders will be fulfilled in the next few weeks. They mentioned February as far as fulfilling those orders. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have before I turn it over to Mr. Mark Heiser for an energy update. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question, Doug Lethin here. On the website, there still is, it's a little bit clunky to find it, but the VCD had put together permit-ready plans for some structures. That's extremely beneficial and helpful to consumers, contractors, DIYers. Is there any activity to continue that or to make that available? That was so helpful. And a lot of appreciation to BCD for putting the effort to put that together. But it's a little hard to find right now.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Doug. And yeah, so it'll give you a little bit of background and then the current status of the Ready Build plan program. So currently we're kind of in a holding pattern. Those plans obviously were created under older iterations of the code, so they don't meet current code today. So you'll notice if you do find them on the Permit Services webpage that there is a very clear disclaimer about, the local government authorities still need to do some type of analysis to determine local or current code compliance for those since they're outdated. There has been quite a bit of action and interest, let's say, across the river and in discussions with the recent HPAC on possibilities of certain ready build plans. There are a number of complexities, as you can imagine, that come with developing those types of plans. And with our administration, our manager, Todd, and Richard here in the room, and our administrator, Alana, we're working through some of those initial complexities to see where we can possibly serve the Oregonians better by having some type of ready-built plans available. So does that answer your question, Doug? Can I provide additional information for you?
That does, and I want to emphasize the value that has for the end user and the boost that has for the compliments to BCD for undertaking that initially. And if there's a way to move that forward, again, it's such a benefit to the consumer, contractor, and the public for the work that BCD does. So thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Doug, and noted. I think we'll have that recorded on the minutes from this meeting, and I'll relay it to the management team as well. So with that, if there's no other questions from the board members, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mark Heiser for an energy program update. Mr. Heiser.
Thank you, Facilitator Rocco. For the record, Mark Heiser with the Division for an Energy Program, and we'll also have one minor mechanical related update here today. But first, for the Energy Program, as Tony had mentioned earlier, there are videos available. There's a very good video for Chapter 11 of the 2021 ORSC, highlighting the code changes. One additional item we're working on is hopefully development of a sort of plan review and submission video for application of Chapter 11 energy provisions for the residential code. Funding didn't come through that we had hoped for getting some federal assistance. However, we are continuing to work with Oregon Department of Energy and some other regional partners looking to take advantage of other federal funds. There's a very substantial pot of money with some dedicated funds for Oregon, as well as some competitive funds that we're looking to potentially get to improve both education and help on enforcement and understanding of the energy codes in Oregon, and also throughout the region, because we think we can maybe work for more a regional solution to get additional information out. The other big item for today that we want to discuss is the residential reach code. The process did open at during December. We looked for public comments and proposals based on a division draft sort of starting point, which was really the draft was sort of a conglomeration of the 2023 residential energy provisions, mixing that with the last REACH code to get a starting point. The target, of course, was to try and get about halfway to the 2030 energy targets set by Executive Order 2004 and House Bill 3409, the rebuild work. The draft proposals and proposals are, unfortunately, we haven't been able to get them posted. Internal technical issues we're hoping to remedy quickly. We are going to have, and it's been a little confusing, but with our new rulemaking now that the rules for adoption of the REACH codes are finished, there is a rulemaking advisory committee scheduled for January 30th at 1:30 p.m. The RAC will be open to all to come in and be part of the RAC to discuss the baseline and the proposals that came in to develop a final REACH code that will be adopted via rule. I believe we're expecting is it a June 1 or July 1? I'm trying to remember the date. July 1, I believe. July 1. Effective date for this. We look forward to participation at those meetings. And one last note is that it's just really a reminder of some code changes that have happened in the mechanical world for the installation and use of the corrugated stainless steel tubing, gas piping, CSST. When the yellow variety is being used for distribution in the house, the manufacturer's installation instructions and the listings require additional bonding that is beyond the normal electrical bonding work. We're trying to make sure we're getting reminders out to everyone that additional bonding is electrical work. So it may require an additional electrical permit for that installation, for the installation of the yellow variety of CSST gas piping. And with that, that is it for the energy program update, and I'm available for questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And just to double check the date of that Rule Advisory Committee, was that January 30th at 1:30 p.m.? Okay, great. Any questions from the board for Mr. Heiser? Okay. Seeing no questions, that moves us on to agenda item 4 in communications. With that, Ian, were you going to introduce this one or just right into Mr. Heiser? Okay, so we have a communication regarding a statewide code interpretation number 23-02 regarding condensate from heat pump water heater. Mr. Heiser, turning it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Rocco. Mark, once again, for the division, Mark Heiser. This interpretation was put out because we were receiving feedback from the field that the condensate from heat pump water heaters, so really they have a cooling coil that's located inside the home that will be producing condensate that is produced in wintertime, unlike cooling coils during from a cooling system. What we have found is that really national code, model code, and state code do not properly address or actually envision having cold condensate leaving a building in winter, which a water heater will be producing. The manufacturer's installation instructions, for the most part, have a lot of recommendations and some requirements, but those requirements could be open to varied interpretations. So what we are addressing is, first off, of the questions are whether or not condensate drainage from a heat pump water heater is covered under the mechanical code and the residential code, and that answer is yes, pointing to OMSC sections 304.1 and residential code section M 1307.1. It's to make sure that those are, that it is covered. The second is if the condensate terminates outdoors or is routed through a space subject to freezing, does the drain pipe require heat tracing? And through most of the manufacturer's installation instructions, that is correct. It is required. So this is to make sure that people, when they're operating their water heater in winter, will, yeah, if the condensate drain does freeze up, and this has been what we received reports of, is that the unit will shut off on safeties if it can't get the drainage out, or it could potentially result in backup and damage. The third question was regarding a manufacturer's installation instructions, which requires special requirements for cold climates. We wanted to clarify what constituted a cold climate and cold location. The heat pump water heater can be installed in a garage, and that won't be considered a cold location. However, if you're in a location where what would be a cold climate is where the outdoor design condition is 32 degrees or lower, so a place where you might have what is really cold condensate coming off this unit, easier subject to freezing, and the intent is that when that pipe is in a area subject to freezing, which would also include as you're penetrating from the indoors to the outdoors, if you're draining to outside, that you would need some form of freeze protection to make sure the water can continue to drain in cold conditions. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to take them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Any questions from the board about this statewide code interp? All right. Seeing none, that moves us to agenda item 5, appeals. There are no appeals for this meeting. And then on to 6 for unfinished business. There is no unfinished business for this meeting. Moving us to agenda item 7, and new business. And first we have statewide alternate method 24-01, which is an alternate path to use the IECC. Ian, could you please introduce this, Sam, for the board?
Thank you, Facilitator Rocco. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. With this agenda item, the division requests the board's review and recommendation of the technical and scientific facts of the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, or IECC, as it relates to energy code provisions for residential structures to serve as a statewide alternate method. Chapter 11 of the Oregon Residential Specialty Code is the adopted energy code of the state of Oregon. This proposed alternate method will allow designers to voluntarily use the 2021 IECC as an additional design choice. Additionally, the U.S. Department of Energy has determined that the 2021 IECC is currently the most advanced model energy code for residential structures and is the target code for all states to achieve. Mark Heiser of the division is available for any additional information or guidance. This agenda item will require a motion, examples of which are included in your agenda packet. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ian. Mark, do you want to add anything for the board ahead of any questions they may have?
Yes, thank you. Once again, for the division, Mark Heiser. During previous board meetings and other discussions, we've had really requests for looking at some of the regions that are closer to, say, Idaho, and where builders are coming in from states that are under the IECC as a potential alternate path, since we have gone through energy modeling to show that the 2023 OESC and the 2021 IECC are close equivalents in overall energy performance for 1- and 2-family homes and townhomes regulated under the ORSC. We wanted to make this the use of the 2021 IECC as a possible path for some of the jurisdictions where they're seeing builders from locations that use the national model code instead. It's a general compliance path, some substantive differences, but result in pretty much what we would call equivalent performance to the current code. It's a item there for flexibility for those. There would also be the availability of things like the federal tools for compliance at that point. So if there are any questions, be happy to answer them.
Great, thanks, Mark. All right, I'll turn it over to the board members for any discussion and questions.
This is Matt. I'm just curious if both Chapter 11 and IECC 2021 would need to be met, or is it one or the other through this alternate method?
For the division, Mark Heiser, this would be it would be one or the other. So particularly for a place like that's right on the Idaho border, the IECC would be a potential path and equivalent. So you could pick one or the other, correct? So the Oregon takes this very chapter and essentially removes it and puts in the Oregon specific version for our Chapter 11.
Thank you.
Any other questions or board discussion? And if not, I would entertain a motion on this.
To the chair, this is Gordon Anslow. I would move to approve the technical and scientific facts of proposed alternate method.
To the chair, Rich Bryce.
All right, great. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Katie, could you do a roll call vote here?
Yes, sir. Gordon Anslow,
Approved?
James Austin,
Approved.
Forrest Barnes,
Approved.
Sean Blaire,
Approved.
John Camiller,
Approved.
Rich Fry,
Approved.
Emily Kemper,
Approve.
Douglas Lethin,
Approved.
Rich Tovar,
Approved.
and Matthew Lutter.
Approve.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Great, thanks Katie, and thanks board members. Moving on here to agenda item 7B. Not often do we have two statewide alternate methods in the same meeting, but we do here today. So here, SAM 24-02 regarding variable speed heat pump thermostats. Ian, could you please introduce this for the board?
Thank you, Facilitator Rocco. Ian Paik, analyst with the division. With this agenda item, the division requests the board's review and recommendation of the technical and scientific facts of allowing an additional exception for use of a manufacturer's approved programmable thermostat in lieu of a smart thermostat to serve as a statewide alternate method. Chapter 11 of the Oregon Residential Specialty Code contains section N1105.4.1.2 requiring Energy Star smart thermostats with new HVAC systems. Currently, an exception is included for smaller equipment that could not utilize smart thermostats. The intent is to cover smaller variable speed compressor systems similar to mini splits, which require use of the manufacturer's supplied thermostat for proper operation of the variable speed compressors. The precise control of the variable speed compressor is critical to the high efficiency of these systems. Currently, there are no readily available control interfaces to allow use of Energy Star thermostats with typical variable speed compressor systems. The current exception to section 1105.4.1.2 stops at mini splits of 18,000 BTU per hour nominal capacity. Larger systems with variable speed compressors are not addressed. Therefore, an additional exception to the code is proposed to allow use of manufacturer's programmable thermostat in lieu of an Energy Star smart stat where approved by building officials. Additionally, the state of Washington also recognizes this application in their residential energy credit list. Mark Heiser of the division is available for any additional information or guidance. This agenda item will require a motion, examples of which are included in your agenda packet. Thank you.
Great introduction, Ian. Thanks so much for that. Again, Mr. Heiser, do you want to say anything for the board here before we get into the board discussion?
Thank you, Chair Rocco. For the record, Mark Heiser once again. As noted, we had hoped to, when we brought in the smart thermostat requirement, to avoid any conflicts with manufacturers' installation instructions, but we had left out that there were some larger above 18,000 BTU units that really, in order to have them operate properly, do need to use proprietary manufacturers' thermostats, and they're coming out some potential interfaces that will allow this in the future, but for now, due to avoiding violating the warranty and manufacturer's installation instructions, these higher efficiency variable speed compressors, in the 3 to 5 ton range, do need to use the manufacturer's thermostat. So we did need to expand this. We noted the language that had been done in Washington for their smart thermostat language, and have brought that to Oregon as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that, Mark. And just to confirm this, there's an additional exception, and it still requires a building official approval for that exception, correct?
Yes, the language is in an exception. It does require approved by the local building official, so it's not a blanket exception. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. Okay, I'll turn it over to you all, board members, for any discussion, questions.
Yeah, this is John Cameller, through the board, through the chair, I mean. So if it requires approval by the building official, what happens if the unit's installed and the building official decides he doesn't want to approve it? Are we requiring the building official to provide some justification?
The intent on this is to make sure that it's really noted that when you do go with this exception, that they're made aware was the reason for using the approved. We would expect, due to the adoption of this, that it would be that the building official would not make you do something that's in violation of the manufacturer's installation instructions. So, and that's where this comes in, is that they would then, it would be a conflict for the building official to say violate manufacturer's installation instructions, because that is part of the code. So, does that help, John?
Then why have it in there? I mean, if it's required by the manufacturer and it's an approved unit, why have that language in there? It just seems to me to add confusion.
Through the chair, Mark Heiser, once again, the language was put in to require for all air conditioning, heating and cooling systems to have the smart thermostat, Energy Star smart thermostat. But so that's sort of the starting point. There are just a few systems that cannot use these, and we wanted to make sure we have properly noted those systems that don't, so that there isn't confusion about which ones should or shouldn't have it. So really, it's a baseline mandate to have the smart thermostat. Then we have the exceptions, and we want to make sure that it's noted that to bring it forward that there are certain conditions, that this was one of the additional conditions where it's not required.
Through the chair, I don't understand bring it forward and make sure it's noted. Can you explain that, what you mean by that?
Okay, so John, is there some language there that you're suggesting be removed? So for standard code hierarchy, the italicized term approved is used throughout the code. It's actually used in the charging language of N1105.4.1.2. It's used throughout the code in different areas. And basically what it just means is that it's something that usually in an exception that then is notified and acceptable to the building official. And that's what the actual defined term in Chapter 2 means. There's other, administrative guidance, administrative provisions where you cannot void the listing of products. And so, obviously that would be a more restrictive and direct provision that would supersede anything here in the case where for some reason the building official thought that it wasn't acceptable. But we're open to, yeah, if you want to suggest some change to the language here, by all means.
Well, through the chair again, I guess, first of all, I don't write code, so it just seems like a superfluous statement. But I think what you just said is that is practice in many of these exceptions. Is that what you just said? To write that, have that statement in there?
Yes, yeah, and not just just exceptions, but also in charging language. Like if you look, I don't know if you're able to look at it, Mr. Camiller, but in that charging language where we show the new exception, it's even there where it says or an approved equivalent. And then when we go to that italicized term in chapter 2, it just says acceptable to the building official. So it's usually just very informal. It's kind of one of these things where it's like, this is what I have, here's why I'm doing this exception, and they're just notifying the building official so that the project records will reflect the actual installations.
Okay, if that's the intent, then I have no objection.
Okay. Thanks for that. It was a great question, though. Any other thoughts from the board, questions or discussion?
Doug Lethin here. I have a question. So, an Energy Star smart thermostat, is that a product-specific item, or is that is it proprietary to a specific product, or are there many products that fit that term?
For the record, Mark Heiser with Division, there are many products that meet that. We wanted to make sure that there was before bringing that into the code for Oregon, that there was a substantive number of them. Some codes try and write out the entire language of what that means. We are looking at this to make it easier to identify which thermostats meet the needs of the code by putting it in. It's a label that I'm trying to remember the total number now, but it's growing pretty much monthly. So it's not a individual product. It's a rating.
Thank you. Sure. Just wanted to check.
All right. Any other questions or discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Gordon Angelo. I agree with Mr. Camiller's original kind of question on this, and I want, and again, I'm not proposing that I'm going to rewrite your language on it, but I think it's clear that the BCD has made, a proper determination that in the case of these heat pumps, that they require the manufacturer's sort of proprietary thermostat on them. My objection kind of just comes down to the thing about the wording that, it has to be, that it appears, at least in the way it's worded, that it needs that to do that, to use those manufacturers' T-stats, that you have to get the approval of the building official. I can certainly see maybe you have to notify the building official, but I always have in the back of my mind, in considering any of this stuff, how much regulatory stuff there is that people have to do. And if there's anything that appears that it could be like capricious or, something you should be allowed to do, which has been determined in the infinite wisdom of the BCD that you should allow this. I would hate to see somebody, like do an install, call for inspection, get rejected, and for whatever unfathomable reason, the building official says, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. I think it'd be better if you didn't, it'd be better off if you didn't have it. And I suspect that there's probably quite a few of these units of this smaller size get installed. So is it likely that a BO somewhere is going to say Nietski? Probably not, but I don't see that. It seems like just a kind of unnecessary setup either for, some misunderstanding or just to appear the people that are out doing the work, and of course, as always, trying to deliver, the work that they do at a good price for the benefit of everybody in the housing chain. It would be nice to not have an apparently kind of unnecessary check-in that you need to do. In other words, before I can install this, I need to check with the building official and make sure he's going to approve it. He or she is going to approve it. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. One thought there is, the where approved language kind of intends that some type of notification would go on. And usually with exceptions, there is some type of approval tied to that. Now, the defined term for italicized approved is acceptable to the building official. And so it could be very informal. There's a lot of informalities for things like that, especially when it's just like, hey, this is what I have, this is what I'm installing, and I'm going to be doing it per the manufacturer's installation instructions. And the building officials say, okay, well, please make sure to have those cut sheets on site when we come out and do the inspection. And then there you go. And that's the application of that exception.
Doug Lethin, in regard to John and Gordon's concern, I would have the same concern if the building official said, well, you can use that, but you did not get my approval first. And again, you could consider that as a personal issue. If we could take personality out of it, and if it's approved, it's approved. It doesn't have to go through some additional process to just make it difficult.
Okay, so what if we strike where approved? What if we just add a period right at the end of thermostat? Because again, we're talking redundant authority to Chapter 1. Does that work for the board? We'll strike where approved.
To the board,
John,
Gordon, go ahead.
This is John Camilla. That works for me.
Great. Okay, so we're going to note that.
And this is Gordon. That works for me. I think that's an elegant little solution. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, with that, and including that adjustment to the SAM, I'd entertain a motion on this one.
This is Matt Lutter. I have heard concerns from contractors about installing smart thermostats on variable speed equipment, so I'm in favor of this. I'm ready to make a motion. I move to amend and approve the technical and scientific facts of the proposed alternate method with the amendment as discussed, striking the where approved from that sentence.
Rich Fry to the board. I second that motion.
Great. All right. We have a motion on the floor, and we have noted the amendment to add clarity to the exception. Do we have any discussion from the board? Seeing none, Katie, can you run a roll call vote? Sorry.
Yes, sir. Gordon Anslow,
I approve.
James Austin,
Approved.
Forrest Barnes,
Approved.
Sean Blaire,
Approved as amended.
John Camiller,
Approved.
Rich Fry,
Approved.
Emily Kemper,
Approved.
Douglas Lethin,
Approved?
Rich Tovar,
Approved.
and Matthew Lutter.
Approved.
The motion was approved unanimously.
Great. Thank you, Katie, and thanks, board members. So that brings us to announcements. While we do not typically monitor the chat on these, apparently there is a question regarding the rack that I reconfirmed the date of earlier for the reach code and whether or not it is open to the public. Yes, it is open to the public. And again, we don't monitor the chat during advisory board meetings, but you're always welcome to sign up for public comment and public testimony. So hope that helps. That's my announcement. Do any board members have additional announcements?
Through the chair, this is Gordon Anslow. I think you're probably aware of this, but my second 4-year term expires in May, so the April meeting is going to be my last meeting. So I think it will be good to be looking for a new person who fulfills the. Let's see, I think I'm in there as a home designer or building designer or something like that. In truth, I was like a general contractor, but anyway, that vacancy will be happening. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon, and thanks for your service. And hopefully you'd be willing to stay on until they find a replacement for you. I'm sure that would be appreciated. Any other announcements? All right, seeing no more announcements, we move to item 8, which is my favorite item on the agenda, and that is adjournment. There being no further business, the January 10th, 2024 RMSB meeting is adjourned at exactly 10:21. Thanks, everybody.